All right, welcome to Table Talk here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. 12 and a half years strong. We've got a great discussion coming to you here on Table Talk. We got one of our good friends to get into this Philadelphia 76ers early season, what we have been seeing from this team, which has been pretty spectacular so far, in my opinion. And we're going to get his opinion as well. We've got from Fox Sports Phillies, The Gambler, and he does some great things over at DraftKings as well. We got our friend Sean Barnard. Buddy, how you doing, man?
Yeah, doing well, Jeff. I'm always appreciative of you having me on, and it feels a little bit better to be in good spirits about this Sixers team. We kind of pushed through some tough times last year, so I'm happy to be spreading the positive vibes all over again.
Absolutely. Dude, and I got to tell you, too, like the vibes in the offseason, not all that great. I mean, I had you on the show. We were trying to keep things optimistic, what we were going to be seeing early this season, what V.J. Edgecombe was going to be doing. Tyrese Maxey, was he still going to be able to develop? What happens with Joel Embiid? And we're certainly going to be getting into that right now on this particular discussion. But man, like it's amazing where the vibes are, and that's how we're going to actually end our conversation. So I'll stop with my nonsense here, because this team right out of the gate just, I believe, showed a ton of resiliency, Sean. Their first two games, they're down by double digits in the fourth quarter. They come back to win both games. So I'm wondering, just to start us off here, should we be really looking at this Sixers team as one that could be one of the most resilient NBA teams right out of the gate here? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's certainly showing the early signs of that. As you mentioned, coming back from a double-digit deficit in both games to pick up victories here. And I think it was important for this team to come out of the gates hot this year for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the wins and losses matter, to get the fan base bought back in, and just inside that locker room for this team having a feeling of, we can produce wins. We can run with the best teams in the NBA if everything clicks right. And that's what's being put on display right now. The number one thing that has stood out has been the resiliency, the effort level, the level of competitiveness. And then, to be honest, that's been something that has been missing on some past iterations of this Sixers team. I think about James Harden and Joel Embiid sort of lumbering around Game 7 as Jason Tatum's dropping 51 in the Wells Fargo Center there to send him home in Game 7. That's not the feeling I get about this Sixer team. It feels like they care, feels like they compete, and they're not going to wave that white flag until the clock hits zero.
Absolutely. Great vibes right from the start. We're going to get into those vibes a little bit later, but we certainly have to talk about the one player and the one talent on this team that is so very exciting, and that is V.J. Edgecombe. His presence on the court, my goodness, he has been electric, Sean. And my co-host, Eric, this past week on the show, he was kind of comparing V.J. Edgecombe to D. Wade, actually, but even better in terms of his offensive presence and his aggressiveness. So I'm wondering, let's start talking about V.J. Edgecombe here. Get your thoughts on this very early start to his career in the NBA and what we've seen from him.
Yeah, it's incredible, man, that you can't ask for a much better start than what he's put on display. The number one thing that stood out with me with him is he's just fearless, that he does not care at the moment. And whether that means rising up and trying to dunk on two guys, or whether that means taking a 3-point at a big moment in a game there, he's just ready for it. Like, mentally, he's there at 20 years old, which does not happen. It's also really uncommon for a player of his skill set, which is essentially a high-level athlete guy that is, it's going to be that kind of his defining trait. Immediately upon walking into the NBA, he's in probably the top 10 percentile of athletes in this league, which is the best of the best. But typically with those kind of guys, you don't really get the basketball feel that he's already showing, just making connective passes, getting rebounds. And I love how active he is. It feels like he's always itching to, what more can I do? Can I help out and box out here? Can I make a weak side rotation here? Like, what can I do at all moments to help impact this team? And I really do believe that the ceiling is even higher than I initially believed with him. It's really exciting what he means to the Sixers team. And I think we're going to be talking about this being the best backcourt in the entire NBA and not too far down the line.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't, if that narrative starts, holy cow, it's going to be hard to quell the vibes. Really, it's going to be really hard. But look, as much as we have loved seeing him thus far, and right now as we are recording this, they are playing the Magic. We're kind of right in the middle of the game here. Halftime is like almost upon us here. But I guess to follow up on V.J. Edgecombe here, Sean, he's a rookie. He's not perfect by any stretch. We are going to see some mistakes happening here and there. Where does VJ, so far from what you have seen, where does he need to work on his game, or where would you like to see him work on his game more as he's progressing here?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, he's been exceeding my expectations in just about every single category that I
Right.
can kind of throw it in to start here. I also think it's really telling, like, the trust that Nick Nurse is showing off the bat here, that leading into today's games, and I'm sure these stats will shake up after all the matchups do go down, but he was tied for third in the league in minutes played per game here, which is nuts for a rookie to be
That
going
is
in that
crazy.
direction there. He's also
Yeah.
like, Nurse is trusting him to run the offense at a rate like much higher than I expected, particularly when you have guys like Quentin Grimes, who's here for the second half of the year, like Tyrese Maxey. We still have veterans sitting on the bench who have not touched the floor this year, such as Kyle Lowry, like that. And I also want to always bring up that Jared McCain is still lurking in the background here as a guy that is going to be an
Yes.
impact player on this team in the pretty near future, that his cast has just been taken off and is making his strides to return. But as far as VJ overall, I think he, I don't really have a specific improvement area right now. He's just
Yeah.
been great across the board in a way that I did not think was possible.
I'm looking at this team, and there are going to be some guys who are going to be coming back to the court. Like you mentioned, Jared McCain. We're going to get to Paul George in a bit as well, but I feel like I don't want any mojo getting screwed up right now with some of these guys coming back. And not that it will by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's also important that we talk about what we have also seen from Joel Embiid too, because I mean, for years and years and years, I mean, arguably one of the best athletes in the city of Philadelphia, and somebody who just a couple years ago was the MVP of this league. And it really does appear, Sean, as though the torch has really been passed to this new generation of Sixers players, as Embiid is, missing tonight's game from, what he's missing tonight's game from a load management, injury management standpoint. How do you envision Joel Embiid's role on this team throughout this season? I guess from an overall perspective here, because I remember seeing a social post from you where you were ranking some NBA players, and I think Embiid might have been like a top 6, if I'm not mistaken. Like, what are your thoughts about Embiid from an overall perspective? I mean, can he really do that? Can he be like a top 6 NBA player here? And where do you really see his role from what we've seen thus far?
Yeah, and for that list in you're referencing there, I kind of
Yes.
went with my direction there. This is a guy who we've seen done it, and I do think that has been written off a little bit prematurely here for
Okay.
sure. That obviously he's been on a strict minutes limit. He's played 20 minutes in each game, and it's been very different across those 2 games there. I think we all forget a little bit that less than 2 calendar years ago, this dude was a universal top 5 player in basketball, and it has been health that's gotten in the way. Now, granted, we know kind of what happens with big guys when there are lower leg issues. The track record is not great there, but I gave him a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt than I think he's getting nationally there, and decided I would rather rock with a guy that I've seen do it than somebody taking a leap for that type of list there. But as far as Embiid's outlook for the season overall, I mean, the first game was really concerning to me from the standpoint of I was pretty impressed with that final preseason game that he did play, that I did think he was moving well there against the Timberwolves, and obviously was the third stringer, and it is preseason, but just his movement up and down the court was really encouraging to me. Then in game 1 this year, did not look the same, that he was sort of lumbering around, no verticality, nothing like that. And that's when the red flag started to raise with me.
Even from a rebound perspective, too.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw that in there because, like, look, yes, this is basketball and a critically important part of the game. But when you have somebody like Embiid with his size, where he needs to be underneath the rim, it was really concerning that first game of the season, just in terms of the lack of rebounding ability.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right there. And that's going to be something that they're going to kind of have to combat for the rest of his career, is pairing him in a little different way than has been the case for most of this. But I was encouraged by the second game of him looking a bit closer to more like himself. There's still work in progress as far as his impact around the rim. I think defensively that there's going to have to be some conversations. But this dude's working back from 2 surgeries in the span of 18 months. I do like that there is a concrete plan from the Sixers organization. Like, I've seen even a little bit of criticism for him not playing against the Magic there. There is always the Embiid beating up on bad teams, merchant accusations on the internet there. But I think it makes a lot of sense for him to play Saturday, rest Sunday, Monday, play Tuesday, then rest Wednesday, Thursday, and then play Friday. So it does feel like there is a plan in place for it. I think the reality is there will be nights where we get a little bit of a throwback Joel Embiid performance, but it is no longer live and die with where Joel Embiid takes you. That this team has other ways that they can win. They have other styles of basketball that they can play, and I think that should be looked at as a positive.
That's a fantastic point, and it's a great point as we head into our first break here. But first and foremost, tell everybody where they can find you on the socials out there and on the interwebs if they want to connect with you, Sean.
Yeah, you can follow me on X at Sean_Barnard1 there. You can also check out Sixers Digest and Pick Swap Media on YouTube there. Pick Swap Media getting back up and running again and cooking.
Nice.
So excited about some stuff that we got brewing there.
All right, very good. And you can like and subscribe to the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show if you are watching on YouTube. Again, like and subscribe, hit that bell to be notified when we post new videos. And we are also on various social media sites. I'm over on Twitter/X at Jeffrey_Warren. The show is at Philadelphia PST. I'm over on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. You can like the show's Facebook page. We're on Threads. Eric and I are over on Blue Sky and, of course, Instagram. Search us out, Philadelphia Sports Table, and I'm over there at Mr. Jeff Warren. Again, we're going to take a break here, and when we get back, got more Sixers talk coming your way. All right, we are back with our good friend Sean Barnard from Fox Sports Phillies The Gambler. Also, DraftKings, Pick Swap Media. I'm glad to hear you're getting back into it there because I truly enjoyed listening to you guys. Specifically when I'd be picking my daughters up during the winter season from their ski club at school. I loved listening to you guys. It was perfect somehow for the drive.
That, man. I appreciate it. That means a lot.
Absolutely, man. Well, look. I want to get into the quote other guy, the older guy on this team who we're just not talking a lot about because he hasn't been on the court and we're not 100% sure when he's going to get back on the court. And that's Paul George. And us fans, what our expectations should be in terms of his contributions this season and once he's able to get back on the court. I mean, I'm wondering from what we've seen thus far, the good stuff we have seen thus far, and we've seen a decent amount of it, how does this team alter itself once Paul George comes back from his injury? And is that alteration going to be a good thing or could it potentially be a negative thing here, Sean? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a good thing, to be perfectly honest. And there is no doubt that he did not live up to the max contract expectations that he did have last year. And I think it's fair to assess that he may very well never reach quite those heights there. But I do think when watching the start of the Sixers season that I'm going to feel a whole lot better if they're kicking out to the corner and it's Paul George taking a three-pointer rather than Dominic Barlow or Kelly Oubre even in that case there.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of uncharacteristic stuff from George. I think it's going to be nice that he's looked at to fit in rather than be the guy and how the season will play off. And I do think that this is happening at a pretty rapid rate here, that he's already returned to 5-on-5 practice. I don't think we're that far from him rejoining this team. And another kind of critique of Paul George throughout his career is he's been a little bit against being labeled a power forward or playing the 4 spot there.
Yes.
Talks about being pretty open to that during Sixers Media Day. I think is an encouraging sign. So he may not be the max contract guy that he was built out to be, but I do think he can be a very valuable role in this current Sixers team and fit into stylistically the way they want to play.
All right. Well, it's going to be positive vibes here on out for us as we talk about this team because we've seen some surprises for sure. And again, only as of us recording this, only 2 full games being played at this point, 2.5 games being played. I'm wondering which player on this team, and yes, of course it's early, which player's really been a surprise when you look at what they've done so far on the court and why?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely Dominic Barlow in this category here.
Yeah.
And it is unfortunate that he's picked up a little bit of injury himself, a laceration, they're calling it, which it required some sort of procedure. Would like a little bit more of a clear update from the Sixers overall on what's going on there. He is ruled out for today and tomorrow, but he was the guy that got the start in both the opening 2 games. And I think that speaks a lot about the belief in Nick Nurse to give a guy that's on a 2-way contract that has a 50-game limit at the NBA level and expected to play some time with the Bluecoats that he said, no, that dude gives us the best chance to win right now. And that's the decision that Nurse made. But the athleticism absolutely pops. And to your same point about Joel's sort of lack of verticality and rebounding ability at the rim there, you need a guy like Dominic Barlow who is going to be all effort, all athleticism, and willing to do the dirty work for the team here. So I think he's served a very valuable purpose so far, and I think he's going to continue to be a pretty significant part of the Sixers team all season.
I didn't really plan on asking you about Nick Nurse, but you brought Nick Nurse up, and I got to give him a ton of credit.
Yeah.
Bouncing back from the season that this team had last year, just a complete toilet bowl of a season. It was just rough, as we all know. I think Nick Nurse deserves some credit right out of the gate here for how he has been that coaching leader that this team really needs. I mean, would you say the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think I was a guy who was a bit more critical of Nick Nurse than the general consensus for last year. That for sure, he was far from the reason where things went south. And there was spots where it's like, what can he really do based on the players that he does have? But I was a little frustrated personally with it. Felt like all too often he was sort of throwing his hands up of, what do you want me to do with this? And a guy like Nick Nurse has been branded as this basketball genius, this mad scientist, this X and O's wizard that can cook together these creative lineups. And I didn't see a lot of that last year. So far this season, they are playing Nick Nurse basketball. They're forcing turnovers, pushing the pace. There does feel to be a bit of an identity in a way that never kind of landed last year. So
yeah,
shout out to Nick Nurse for getting the team to buy in. I think the product on the floor is sort of speaking to that buy-in directly there. And I do think he deserves a lot of praise for how the season has started.
All right. Well, my friend, before I let you go, we've been talking and you know, talking and getting around to this subject matter of the vibes. And the vibes are certainly high right now for this Sixers team. And it's because we really are, I think, seeing that torch being passed like we talked about earlier. We're actually seeing it happening in motion right now. A lot of us talked over this past offseason and even in the past few years, you know, when we would start to see it. We're seeing it. It's being done in such a productive way, I think. How does this team keep these positive vibes going in the long term for us fans to truly continue to love this team and who they are?
Yeah, it's keep the foot on the gas the way they are right now. And
Yeah.
I think where this really started to me and what made an impression on me significantly here was Tyrese Maxey. When he stepped up there at Sixers Media Day, he talked about his goals for the season. And one of the number one things he brought up is setting a standard that he said, when you flip on the Philadelphia 76ers, watch them on TV, when you go to a game, that you're going to know the way they're going to play, that they're going to compete until the final whistle. There's going to be a standard of play. He is walking the walk with that statement there. And it started with the offseason, with him bringing teammates out to his hometown of Texas, flying them out, or home state of Texas there, bringing them out for training and everything there. But I think it starts with that. There is a standard that is set this year that I don't really feel was ever the case. So if the floor for this team is a group of young athletic players that is going to compete and give you everything they got, that's a team that I think we all can rock with and get behind here. So there's a lot more season to kind of sort through how good this team really is, what are the strengths and weaknesses, and how does this stack up around the rest of the NBA. But if that's what we're getting on an every night basis, is a team that's going to compete as hard as they possibly can, I can rock with that team right there.
We all can, for sure. Folks, he is Sean Barnard. Again, Fox Sports Phillies, the gambler. Also, DraftKings, Pick Swap Media. I subscribe on Apple Podcasts. You should as well, on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Sean, buddy, thank you so much for taking the time. Always great talking with you. Let's talk more Sixers in the future. I'd love to have you back on, my friend.
Absolutely. Appreciate you for having me, Jeff.